I'm now going to pass my pen to Lanny for the panel discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, there we are. So you've all had an overview of the remarkable work that has been happening in Nepal for oh, over decades. And now we thought we would have a chance for you to hear from sponsors. There's already a question from Jenny Knight of, has anyone been collecting sponsor stories? And I think that's a great idea for us to put a book together of how people came to HIO, what motivates them to continue, and what would they want the world to know about HIO. So we have tonight, invited five of our sponsors, all who've come and in from different backgrounds and directions, and whose experience has been slightly different to speak about their experience. So I'm going to welcome one panel member at a time, and when all five are here, I'm going to invite each of them singularly to tell a little bit of their story from their specific lens. So first up, I want to welcome uh, Jack and Beth Eisler. So here's a little bit of their story. They joined HIO on a sponsored trip to Nepal in 2014, and they met their sponsored daughter, Pooja, and her mother, who's a mushroom farmer. Their enthusiasm for HIO's sponsorship program blossomed from that point and has only been blooming ever since. Pooja graduated from medical school this year and is now serving in her internship. The remarkable coincidence of this story is that Jack is a retired eye surgeon and Pooja has a congenital benign eye tumor. So the connections that they've had through this over the years has just been so remarkable and supportive and fulfilling in both directions. Pooja's big graduation ceremony is next December, and Jack is already planning to be there to support her through this next incredible life milestone. So thank you, Jack and Beth, for being here. And before you jump in, I'm going to keep growing our pool here. And when everyone's here, we're going to hear more of these stories. So start also, everyone, gathering your questions that you might have for each of these sponsors in the chat. Next, I'd like to welcome Val. Let me bring Val up. So Val's story, uh, here we go. Always on the move, our Val. Um, we came to know Val through the Friends of Nepal, which is a network of returned Peace Corps volunteers that promote healthy development in Nepal by awarding grants to nonprofits that are serving Nepali communities. And she was very helpful during her tenure in supporting HIL through that method. Val lived in Nepal on and off for almost 6 years in the early 2000s while working for a study abroad program teaching ecosystem studies. So she currently is on the board. She serves as our vice chair, and she sponsors sixth grader Roshni and her mother, Regina. So Val is here representing a mother-daughter pair. Jack and Beth supporting a young woman all the way through medical school. And next, we want to welcome to this remarkable crew, Jeff and Jessica Pearson. Let me find Jeff and Jessica. Here they are. Come join us. There they are. You got a peek at them earlier when I was confused in my spotlighting, but you're here now. They visited Nepal in 2017 as part of a volunteer dentistry program. So we already know a lot about their values in action. But a friend asked them, since you're going to Nepal, would you drop some books off at this place called HIO? They have a learning center in Balku. And they said yes. And while they were there at the Learning Center, they were so impressed by the Montessori learning that they saw that they knew then that they wanted to play a larger role. Their own grandchildren had gone through Montessori schools, so they appreciated all that was happening in those learning centers. And you can tell and will tell later from their story how their mission fits so well with their ongoing commitment to advocating for marginalized people. Um, they have dealt with the disappointment of having two girls leave the program, and yet they're now sponsoring yet another girl. So can speak from that experience of having to go through the excitement, the heartbreak, and the pivot, and what that has been like for them. So next we have Dwayne. Let me find you, Dwayne, to bring you up. There we are. Welcome, Dwayne. So, Dwayne's story is that he first traveled to Nepal as a Peace Corps volunteer in 1970. He was introduced to Ram, our own Ron Adukari, who is now retired from HIO, but played a prominent role here for 30 years. And he has consistently supported our work over these 30 years since meeting Ram. So, Dwayne, you might be one of our longest supporters. He became Sonu's sponsor just 2 years ago, and they have a remarkable writing exchange. What, Dwayne, we would like you to focus on is that here you have been supporting the program financially in remarkable and so helpful ways for almost 30 years, but then 2 years ago chose to be a sponsor. And what led you to do that, and what that
Mm,
experience has been like for you. And then lastly, but not least, we have Joyce. So Joyce, let me bring you up. So Joyce Sherpa, here we go. There, welcome. Welcome, Joyce. Joyce traveled with a friend to Nepal in 1990, and she fell in love with the country. And soon after, she saw an ad for HIO in the Snow Lion News, something I'd like to learn more about. So she reached out, contacted Ricky, and then a month later, she received an image of little Mamata and her mother. So, yes, Joyce
mm,
was the sponsor of our own Mamata. After Mamata graduated from high school, Joyce said, "What's next?" So she went on to sponsor Shristi. Shristi, who is now studying here at Bates, and actually recently met up with Joyce when she first arrived in this country, and Joyce introduced her to the ocean for the first time on a remarkable kayaking trip.
mm.
Christy is now on her own, and Joyce said, "Who's next?" She's on her third girl, Nirmala, who she's been seeing again from beginning all the way through. So remarkable. Three girls through their education. So Joyce, I think you might win the most and longest award here. So delighted and grateful for the five of you to be part of this. And I want to invite you, if you have something to say, I don't know if each of you know has how to raise your hands under the React button, but I'm going to ask some general questions and then draw out those of you who I haven't heard enough from about your experience. So I might actually start at the end, Joyce, and we'll work our way back because I'd love to hear more. What led you to say yes over 30 years,
Mm.
3 times?
My heart. So I I don't know what more to say. Laura sent me a thing and told me to be prepared, and I was like, I just listened to my heart. Sorry, the slideshow is amazing, Laura, and I don't know how anybody else has dry eyes because I was crying all the way through it. But
Yeah, you see the impact of that. Uh, can you share with us at any of those moments of pivot, like realizing that your time with Mamata was coming to a close and what happened in you that you said, Lauren, Ricky, um, I can't stop.
pretty much what you just said.
Yeah, yeah,
That
beautiful. If you had to tell the world anything about HIO, if you had a chance in the Snow Lion News to put in your own front page article, what are one or two things that you would want the world to know about HIO?
um I guess to listen to your heart, and every human deserves a chance. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And what I hear in that is that we can make a difference yeah, when we open our hearts. Thank you, Joyce. Dwayne, if I can move to you, because you also have been involved for many, many years, decades. Can you tell us a little bit about your pivot from just being a financial supporter to deciding just 2 years ago that you wanted to also sponsor a girl and what that experience has been like for you?
Well, actually, when I started supporting HIO years ago, I wasn't really keen on supporting an individual because I'd lived in Nepal. I was a Peace Corps volunteer there. And I saw a lot of examples of individuals, children who received gifts or other things that created envy in their peers. And so I felt fine about contributing to the program. But I changed, I pivoted about 8 or 9 years ago when I visited Nepal, and Ram took me to the school. I met some of the girls, I met some of the teachers, I met some of the families, and I began to see that it was changing people's lives on an individual basis. And that if these girls, and I had taught in Nepali schools, so I was familiar with the challenges that girls face and the fact that most girls don't go to school, but didn't at that time anyway, um, that here was an opportunity for girls who would never have this opportunity otherwise, not only to become educated, but to change their lives and the lives of their mothers and their siblings. And so I decided to jump in. And so I've been sponsoring Sono. I think this is my third year now. But it came about really from my visit and meeting girls and meeting teachers firsthand. That's what did it.
I've heard that you have a very special writing connection with Sono. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're pen pals. I don't know how else to say it. Um, I write letters, and she writes letters back in English. And um, I try to ask her questions about what's important to her. What is she doing? What is she interested in? What's her daily life like? And I try to share that um, of my own daily life, the things that are interesting to me or things that I see. And so I imagine myself walking with her. This is a visual image. And if I were walking with, I've never met her, but if we were walking together, what would I ask her? And how would I relate to her? And how would we touch each other's hearts? And I try to keep that in mind when I'm writing.
Mm. It sounds like it has sparked her to return letters on the walk with you as well. Yeah. What channels do you use to send your letters? I know there's several. What have you found works best for you and Sono?
Oh, you mean how do I send them? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
my penmanship is terrible. Chicken scratching, I called it to her one time. So I type them out. I just kind of do it on a computer, print them out, and then send them electronically through the Love Notes portal. And then the staff on the Kathmandu end takes it from there and sharing it with Sonu. So once in a
Beautiful.
while, I think I've tried writing handwritten as well, and there's something nice about that. But it's whatever works.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Dwayne. We'll come back. But I want to turn to Jeff and Jessica for a moment, in that you've just heard two stories of uh, deep relationships that have formed with Joyce and Dwayne and theirs. And you had a little bit of a different rough start, it sounds like. Could you tell us more about that and what's kept you going through some disappointments to now where you are?
She'll unmute us.
Okay. Can you hear us?
Hmm.
Okay. So it hasn't been too rough a start. We did start with two girls about 7 years ago. We got them because we visited Balku and um, actually toured the slum quite thoroughly, and were we've been in third world countries and seen slums, and we were just totally devastated. And then surprised to find that in the middle of the slum at that time, Strong Roots had a physical school right in the slum where we got to see them being instructed with Montessori education. That hooked us. But we started off with two kids who came from Balku about 7 years ago, same age, 5 years old, 6 years old. Several years into that relationship with the two of them, one of them had the classic experience of mother leaving. There was no father to begin with, mother leaving to work abroad, and the child going back to the village. And then that sponsored girl was shortly after, thanks to Ricky and Laura's prompt response on our request, replaced with another young lady who appeared in Laura's initial
Slideshow.
slideshow, Lena, whom we worked with we were pleasured to have as a sponsoree for several years. And then her mother, who was working abroad, essentially summoned her and her sister to come join her abroad. And they enthusiastically embraced that invitation. And as Laura mentioned it in the introduction, there was no resisting it. So, how we carry on is that we are open at any time to sponsoring another
Exactly.
second girl, and we take great enjoyment and fulfillment from working with our current sponsoree, Sanam, with whom we had a first time video
Zoom visit.
Zoom visit just a week ago.
And I want to say a a little bit more of a kind of a maybe cold-blooded type of motivation. I'm a sociologist, a researcher, and I know that the biggest predictor of child outcomes, positive outcomes, is the education level of the mother. And that's true in America, and it's true in third world countries. It's if you have only one thing to look at to sort of predict outcomes for a child, it's the educational level of the mother. So I really see this as a not only a 2-gen, but a 3-gen, an N-gen program, a multi-generational program that is going to not only transform the lives of mentees, and their mothers if they are participating in the program, but also their children and their children's children. It is sort of the best mechanism for promoting social mobility and well-being. And so that's that's my geeky kind of take on a program and its benefits.
I'm so grateful that you brought that message forward and that sponsoring a girl now is planting the seeds of the future. But this is a
Totally.
lovely segue to Val because HIO also supports so many of the mothers towards their own literacy. So I'm going to pivot to Val, who is sponsoring not only sixth grader Roshni, but her mother, Regina, in the Be Part of Her Dream program as well. Val, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I started sponsoring Roshni maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I had the very good fortune of Zooming with her shortly into my sponsorship. And her mom was there in the background from the get-go. And every time I wrote to Roshni and we exchanged letters, I would ask about her mom. And it was very clear that Roshni loved her mom and that her mom was this huge force of support and care for her. And I was always curious and wondering, well, when is Rosina, the mom, going to join BPOHD? And when she did, I jumped at the chance to
Mm.
sponsor her because, you know, I think our role when we're kids is to go to school. And I'm so grateful to be able to support Roshni through her learning journey. But I was trying to put myself in her mom's shoes. I don't know how old her mom is, but imagining myself as an adult, what it would take, the vulnerability, the humility to go back and start learning and start forming this sisterhood with other moms so that I could be a role model for my daughter just seems like it would take so much courage. And I really like the idea of helping this family move along this journey together. So that's our story.
Beautiful. Very, very exciting for you to have that experience of seeing both generations moving themselves forward and supporting each other in that. Thank you. Lastly, I want to turn to Jack and Beth, and I've saved you for last because not only have you had this incredible long relationship with Pooja, and congratulations on her graduating from medical school. You must
Yeah.
be so proud.
Right.
But you also started the Bob and Nettie Eiler Fund for higher education. And I'd love for you just to share what that is a little bit and some of the impact that you've seen in that.
Sure. It I just want to say, first of all, that um, being Pooja's sponsor and seeing her all the way from being a 9-year-old girl living under a tarpaulin with no electricity on the outskirts of Kathmandu to now seeing her later this year become a doctor has been one of the most gratifying experiences of my life. And I'm very grateful for that. Beth and I have visited Pooja twice in Kathmandu in 2014 and in 2020, and I will be there later this year too. I've told Pooja I want to be the first one to call you doctor. So and I think that as a ripple effect, she will then be a doctor that will take care of a lot of other people in her community. And when I saw her in 2020, I asked her to please, when you become a successful doctor, when you're making a good income, I want you to find a deserving young lady to sponsor as well. And she promised me she would. So there's certainly a ripple effect. My mother, in whose memory this fund was created, did not graduate from college until later in life, until she was in her 40s, and yet then went on to get her PhD and become a tenured professor. And she's a real inspiration. And I would tell you that we have paid for Pooja's medical school, and which is not as expensive as it is in the United States, but nevertheless somewhat expensive. And that there are many other girls whose names have come up during the discussion today who are pursuing graduate degrees in medicine, dentistry, law, accounting, whatever, and the expense for that is far beyond the expense of tuition is far beyond the expense of sponsorship. So Beth and I have seeded this fund named for my parents to sponsor and pay for the tuition of other girls who would go on to graduate study. And I hope we'll also have a similar ripple effect going forward.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And I just want to say there's been a wonderful ripple effect amongst our friends, both here in the Northeast in Connecticut, amongst our family also, all members of the family, including Jess Eisler, who's part of the Zoom today. So we are so grateful, and I think our enthusiasm and everybody's enthusiasm here on the screen is contagious.
As you've so both beautifully said, that impacting one life can ripple out to impact thousands of lives, and generations to come. And that the sponsor's responsibilities do not continue or need to continue past the 12th grade. But Jack and Beth, you are such role models for us of seeing someone all the way through and then creating this fund that will support several other girls who are reaching to continue their education, that they might continue to give back more and more. I am so grateful to each of you for sharing your stories today. I think we need to capture more sponsor stories because they're so inspiring of people, as you said, Beth, not only what you're doing, but then sharing your experience with those around who say, yes, I want to help too. And it just creates another kind of ripple that's so important.
I want to get to a question. Jenny Knight asked if Sophia, could you tell us more of your personal story, how you got here? And it's a beautiful story.
Sure. So I guess it all started when I was in high school. I actually, with my mother, was working with another NGO that kind of spotlighted different NGOs each month. And one month the spotlight was on HIO. And I was a junior in college at the time. And so for a summer internship, I actually ended up going to Kathmandu and working on the ground for 2 months. And ever since then, I kind of just stayed in touch. My degrees have been mostly in human rights. So obviously, the work was kind of tailored to that as well. And in my last year of my master's, I kind of formally started working with HIO again. And then once I graduated from my master's, I've been working with them since. So I'm currently doing my PhD in human rights as well. But it's been really an honor and really very, very personally fulfilling to to be able to keep working with HIO all throughout this years because it is the work that really keeps me grounded, even with all of the kind of heady academic stuff that is kind of the other side of my life. But this work is really the heartfelt work that I truly find very meaningful.
That you've covered it beautifully, and the final message is that Laura, Ricky, Sophia, Mamata are
Any
all
big
available
do.
to answer questions at any time,
No.
to reach out to them and to continue to engage with your girls. And I think that we're seeing the benefits of bringing us all together as sponsors. It's just so positive and powerful that perhaps we can do this again.
Appreciate all of your time and all of your big hearts.